Sandy from Bernina, Northland in New Zealand. Today I'm going to demonstrate making scrub caps. This is because I've had a call from people who are involved with the COVID-19 response in Whangarei Base Hospital, and the team there, as well as other staff in the hospital, are asking for scrub caps. So this is what a finished article looks like. It's a glorified baby's bonnet. To do these, you will need 14 inches of fabric for the top part, or the back, and 16 inches of fabric for the brim and ties, and just 4 inches of elastic. Now, when I was preparing these, I've slightly modified the pattern that I was given by the team. However, the reason for that is so that I'm using my fabric really economically. So out of 46 inches of fabric, I can make 2 sets of scrub caps. So here's the first part. For the top of it, or the back of it, I've folded my fabric in half and in half again, so that the centre of it is lining up with the selvage edge. That way I can pin on my pattern and I've got 4 layers, hence 2 caps. For the ties and around your head, I have folded my fabric in half and then folded it down that way, because my pattern is on the fold on this edge and on the long edge. Now I'm ready to cut out. But just wait a moment while I do that. So now that the pieces are cut out, I'm ready to do my first part of sewing. Come with me to my sewing machine. So I'm just using my standard number 1 foot, and I'm going to sew across the straight edge on the top of my pad. I'm just using my presser foot width as my seam allowance. So now that I've sewn that straight edge down, I'm going to press it well with my iron and fold so that I've got wrong sides together and that seam is nicely pressed. And I'm going to pin around the edges to hold them together until I can stitch them down, so I don't want them moving. Let's come back to my sewing machine. Now, because I'm using 1/2 inch elastic, I'm going to measure a 3/4 inch in from where that seam was, and I'm just going to draw the line. If I was using 1/4 inch elastic, I would simply make that 1/2 inch, just to enable a casing to put my elastic through. So I'm going to stitch along on that line. Again, this is just my standard number 1 foot. Now that I've made that casing, I'm going to put my elastic into that. I've got this nifty little bodkin. It's a Clover product that I use such a lot. I just pinch it in and I'm going to put it up through the casing, and when it's poking out 1/2 inch, I'm just going to go back and forth on that elastic to hold it in place. Then I'm going to pull it the rest of the way through. And And again, I'm going to have it hanging out by 1/2 inch. So in effect, I'm using 3 inches of elastic inside my cap. And I'm going to simply stitch over that elastic to hold it there too, on the other edge. Now I'm going to change to my number 10 foot, and I'm going to do an edge stitch right around the entire circumference of this piece. My number 10 edge foot gives me a nice tooth to follow the edge of the fabric. That way I can always be exactly even in my distance from the side of the fabric. Now it doesn't matter exactly where I start because I'm going to go around the entire thing. However, I'm going to start in the head of it because I know that's going to hide later. And I've moved my needle over by 2 spaces, and I'm just following that edge all the way around. When I come to my casing, I'm just going to stretch that elastic out, but let the machine take the fabric through. Now if you're not confident doing it like this, you could of course do a top stitching across that seam before you put the elastic in. See how those pins are just keeping that edge together. I can zip around it. And I'm back to the beginning. Knot and cut my threads. Now I am going to cut off the excess of the elastic so that I can't forget to do it later. That's the stitch. Then I'm going to put that piece aside while I prepare the other part of it. Here's the other part of my scrubs cap. Now I'm just going to unpin my pattern and show you what the shape looks like, because it's a little hard to imagine. Because this was cut on the double fold, one fold, double fold, comes out like that. Now, right sides together, matching my centres, and I'm just going to pin the edges together, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam to sew from one end all the way along to the other end. So just a moment while I do that. So once I've got that long edge pinned, I'm going to use my 1/4 inch foot, and I'm simply going to stitch along that entire one edge, matching the raw edges as I go. It's gentle curves, so it is quite easy sewing. And again, knot and cut my threads. Now I'm just going to cut into the curves of the seam so that when I turn this right side out, it is easy for those seams to turn. It's as far as that because all this is straight, and then again on this curve. So I'm very careful I don't snip through my stitching, and it's about a finger width apart so that I can have lots of overlap where I need to. From that, I'm then going to turn it in the right way. It'll take a little moment because to start with you've only got 2 fingers width to start, but as you get going it gets wider and wider and becomes easier. Now for this particular cap I'm using matching brim and top. You can use contrasting if you prefer, so you can mix and match your fabric cuts. I'm sure that the nursing staff and doctors who will be wearing these will be quite interested in what kind of fabrics we put together. The most important part is that they are good quality cotton, because these will be going through the hospital washings. So they're at 60 degrees. Cotton needs to be able to take that kind of heat. Now I'm going to press that seam so it's sitting easy for me. And now I'm ready to press those seams. I'm just going to flatten them with my fingers by rolling them out. If you've clipped those curves, this becomes quite easy, and then you can actually press it with your iron. And do that front edge of it too. Do it in segments if that's easier for you. But if you forget to clip those curves to start with, do turn it in the other way again and clip them. It makes the job so much easier. And while we're here, I'm also going to turn under the very edges, the ends even, so that I can stitch a hem into it a little bit later. But at least if it's pressed, it's ready for me to stitch. So I just turn the end, raw edges inside, about a 1/2 inch turn is what I'm doing, making it sit nicely, and then press with the iron. So now those edges are turned under, I'm actually going to use a long ruler and make a mark straight across, and then I'm going to stitch that one. Come to my desk and have a look. So I'm using a metre rule, and I'm just going to lay it on my fabric about 1/8 of an inch down. I'm laying that 1/8 of an inch down, and then I'm going to rule a line all the way. Now I'm going to stitch that line all the way around here. Okay. I've reverted to my number 10 foot again, because this is top stitching using my edge foot, and I'm beginning at one end or the other, it doesn't matter which. I'm going to move my needle over 3 spaces, and I'm just going to top stitch across that pressed under end, turn, go right along the folded edge. This is where the number 10 edge foot comes into its own. I can make beautiful stitching very quickly. Very straight. Very easy. right to the other edge that was folded under, across it, and along again. And when I can see where my pink marker is, I'm just going to lift my edge tooth up, and I can just travel along with my needle on my drawn line. And when I come back to the other part, my tooth will just come off and guide my edge stitching again. All the way down to my starting point. Knot and cut my threads. And now I'm ready to put this with the brim of my hat. Let's go to my desk. Putting the two pieces together, I need to find the centres of both pieces, and I'll just mark those with a pin. I want to put the raw edge, it's more than 1/8 of an inch but less than 1/4 of an inch, down from the folded edge of the other part, and pin the centres together. Then I'm going to lift it up, and I'm just going to keep pinning around the curves. Note the direction of my pins so that the curves come together without having the straight of a pin stopping that curve happening. Pinning as close or as far apart as you want to. I tend to pin this fairly closely. I've gone from the centre all the way down to where the casing for the elastic will be. All the way down, there's my casing, and I'll pin that as well. And then I'll come back to the centre and curve down the other edge, nearly coming up to the other casing edge. And as a checkpoint for myself, I will be able to see that this casing and the other casing match pretty well where my stitching was starting across the brim there. Let's go and do the stitching. Back at my machine, and I've got my 1/4 inch foot on again. Now I can line up my 1/4 inch foot on the edge of my folded piece and press a foot down, and I'm starting right at the edge of the casing of the elastic, so that I'm about 1 stitch off it towards the ties. My machine's doing their knot, and then I'm going to be stitching across the elastic and its casing and all the way around the edges. Now my 1/4 inch foot will be at the side of my folded piece, and my needle will be on or just to the inner side of the actual cap. I'm just going to stitch pin to pin. If I can feel it folded underneath, I'll just move that around and keep stitching so that I don't make a pucker. I'm past the centre, coming up to the other edge of the casing. I'm coming up to the other end now. The pattern pieces will be available on our website and blog. There's a link on the video. Please do subscribe to it, and the link to the pattern pieces will be directly below that. That last final piece, so that I stitch right over the edge of that casing again. Whoops, that's a bit better. I just want to stretch that elastic away. That's better. And again finish one stitch beyond where it is all linked together. Now if you have a quick look at that, you can see where my stitching is quite a bit in on that edge, but it's just onto the raw edge. So what we're going to do now is go over to my top stitching number 10 foot, and we're going to top stitch the folded edge over the top of the raw edge. Just wait while I change my feet again. Got my number 10 edge foot on there now, and I'm going to put the tooth to the folded edge of the ties, just beyond where my casing for the elastic is. I'm going to move my needle over 3 positions, and I'm going to knot and begin my stitching. As I'm stitching, what I'm doing is just pulling the edges gently apart so that they lie flat over the raw edge. My number 10 foot tooth gives me a really lovely guide to put the folded edge to, making this job so much easier. And I haven't even pinned this because actually it just sits really nicely. No puckering because it just forms in as I'm stitching. However, if you wanted to, you could of course pin that. You can tell how all the raw edges are completely encased in this, so it becomes a bit of a lapsing. And even the edges of where my elastic is again stitched down, and the raw edges are hidden, and I can come off again, and I'm basically stitching on top of what was my original top stitching around the ties. So I'm going to knot and cut that together. My cap is finished except for pressing. Come over to the iron. So I've stitched down the folded edge over the raw edge. Now all I want to do is press along where I had marked that line and stitched it, just so that it actually folds really easy, and the stitching that I've got there gives that marker, and it means whoever is wearing these can actually tie it on quickly when they are needing. Now, doing this method has meant that this is completely reversible, so whoever is wearing these can decide which way to wear it. So there's my completed article. Do you like to see it on me? So here's how they look on the ladies, and men. Just fits over however much hair you have got. The elastic fits below where your hair is, especially if you've got a lot. tie, done. Now of course if I was a medical person I'd have to have my fringe in there as well, but that's how they sit. Very firm, very comfortable. I'm Sandy from Bernina, Northland in New Zealand. Please do subscribe to our videos and get the pattern and make these for our staff at the Whangarei Base Hospital. Thank you.